Today we will talk about blueprints, a thing that at first seems completely incomprehensible. We are in a house that is already built and currently on the market and available for purchase. But it all initially started once with an idea and detailed blueprints, carefully and meticulously. Today we will go through all the stages you need to know when you are building a house or even observing how your house is being built. By the end of this video, you will definitely understand how to read blueprints. If you want to delve deeper into this topic and watch a longer, more in-depth video, follow the link, subscribe, and we will send you both the blueprints and a video with details on how to read and understand the blueprints, along with additional information and further insights. 5 years ago, I moved to America. We bought a plot of land and started creating a project. The project, of course, starts with a blueprint. When I received the first blueprints, I opened them, looked at them carefully, and closed them. To me, it seemed like a set of certain numbers, phrases and some lines. I couldn't understand anything at all. Then I gathered all of my strength and carefully opened the blueprints. I went to my friend John, and he explained to me in detail exactly what was in those blueprints and what to pay attention to, and thoroughly. So, let's start with the most important thing, the first step. When you buy a plot of land and want to build a house on it, you need to get a survey. Surveys typically look like this. It is usually a detailed and comprehensive document made by a professional company, a survey company. But in order to get surveys, you need to determine what type of survey it should be. Surveys can be just a basic one, which is done for selling a house, for example. And a service company or service specialist comes to the plot and marks the boundaries of the plot and the position of the house. All the elements that are on the plot, such as gazebos or fences, will be indicated by the survey. But if you want to build a house, and especially if it is on a sloped plot, you need to tell the survey company in your application that you want to get a detailed and comprehensive topo, a topographic survey, because on the topographic survey, you will see the exact and precise elevations of your slope. So now you have all these surveys in hand. How much do the surveys cost? A very interesting question. For a lot size of approximately 0.3-0.5 acres, you will pay between $1,000 and $1,500. For an acre, you will pay between $1,000 and $1,500. If you want to do an enhanced survey with topography from 3 surveys, it can cost up to $2,000 to $2,500. The survey takes about 2 to 3 weeks to complete. If naturally the lot is larger, 1 acre, and there are a lot of trees, they will count all these trees, and the survey can go up to $5,000. The most expensive survey in my life that I did, I ordered a survey for approximately a 13-acre plot, and it cost $15,000. Look, this picture, this is just the survey after we finished building the house. And here you can see that the beautifully and meticulously designed house is already placed on the residential plot of land. The survey company came and specifically mapped out the location where the house is situated. And in this picture, you can see the design. That is how we planned the placement of this house. In principle, if you take and essentially compare the two pictures, you can actually see that they essentially match. Both the house that was designed and the house that was built are located almost exactly in the same exact place, with the same exact dimensional lines. We completed our task 100% well because there are no changes from the plan to the actual result. The first sheet includes the most general information, except for the site plan on the server, the house plan on the server, and the development plan on the server. On the first sheet, you must show who the designer or architect is. Here on the first sheet, the architect's or designer's stamp is usually placed if your county requires it. There are counties that do not require a stamp. Information is provided about the client and information is provided about the developer who will be building. Sometimes there is information about the developer, sometimes there isn't. Here you will also definitely see general data. This includes the lot size, the square footage of the house, the number of rooms, and the number of bathrooms. You will see here in this particular area, which is the temperature-controlled area, you will also see here in this unconditioned space the amount of available space. You will definitely see based on which codes the house was built. That is, international codes, local codes, Texas codes, and so on. The next sheet is already for professionals like you. Here it includes abbreviations and hints about which materials are used, how they are designated in the blueprints, how they will be highlighted, how they will be described, and which letters and numbers will be on each blueprint. For example, concrete. And we see the concrete section where it says concrete will be shown specifically on the blueprints as dots placed in a specific location, clearly in the blueprints. Or for instance, we can look here, there is gravel, and gravel will be shown in this way. Brick will be shown in this way. And when we move further into the blueprints, for example, you can go back to this sheet and see what the architect wanted to indicate in the blueprints and details. The layouts allow you to imagine how you will walk around the house, live in the house, where your living room will be, where your bedroom will be, where your bathroom will be, where your guest bathroom or any other additional rooms will be. Floor plans are a fairly straightforward and simple but important element that allows you to see the dimensions and layout of the rooms, such as the living room and kitchen, to see the number of doors, to see the number of windows, the sizes of the windows, the sizes of the kitchen, other elements, the fireplace, for example. That is, the layouts must include absolutely all the elements of the house that will be built in right away. The roof is a separate blueprint. The roof blueprint needs to show the slopes of the roof, the roofing material used, and the dimensions, specifically including the length, width, and height. If this is a pitch trough, and we covered this in previous videos, then the roof slope and the material used must be specified. If it is a flat roof, you need to indicate that if this is a roof under the decking, it needs to be specified that the material is TPO, or roofing felt under the decking. So, the roofing element is a separate sheet in the blueprints. Now, let's move on to the sections. Now to the views of the house, when you can see in the blueprint how your house will look from different angles. The front view. Here is the side view. Moving on to the next sheet. Now we have the reverse view of the backyard, followed by another side view from a different angle. What is important in the blueprints that are very detailed and clearly show all the necessary details where the views of the house are located. Here, the so-called floor level is indeed very important. So, when you demonstrate where your floor and ceiling are, such as which structural beam, then again the floor level, and the ceiling level. From which reference point is it taken? From 0. What is 0? 0 is the first floor elevation, which means the level of the first floor. This is an extremely important mark. After the architectural elevations are finished, there is still one important blueprint, the so-called house section. In the cross-section of the house, you will see exactly where your doors are located. Pay close attention to how the stair landing is carefully and precisely made. What internal openings and partitions are there? What is the thickness of the beams? This will all be shown in the cross-section of the house when the architect cuts it at some point or at 2 points, from one view and from another view. It depends on the complexity of your project. Sometimes there are a lot of such cross-sections. Another important element is the schedule. The schedule is like a table where the dimensions of windows and doors are specified. The architect creates this schedule for you. When you have finished the architectural blueprints, you face a huge task, which is to create the structural blueprints. what is essentially a structural blueprint, or in other words, what they call exactly structural design, basically. A structural blueprint is a drawing of the house by a structural engineer who places their stamp on it. Please note, there is a structural engineer's stamp here, just like on the architectural blueprints. This seal definitely guarantees that your house absolutely won't collapse in the future. Definitely. That is, your house is built based on codes and regulations, and an engineer needs to do an inspection when the foundation and frame are built. In other words, a structural engineer handles two parts. This is the foundation part and this is the framing part. The structural engineer basically conducts inspections. He prepares a letter at the end, you submit the letter, and the house is put into operation. What are the pitfalls in structural blueprints? First, of course, a structural blueprint always works in conjunction with an architectural one. You won't always find exact dimensions in structural blueprints. I would even say you rarely find them. The structural engineer provides the concept of what materials are embedded in the house's structure, but he doesn't give the dimensions. So you'll be taking the dimensions from the architectural blueprints. And any structural engineer will right away ask you for architectural blueprints, such as in DVG format, which he can easily open and work with your architectural blueprints. But still, remember this. If you receive the blueprints and there isn't a single dimension line, that's normal. You will rely on the detailed architectural blueprints and carefully take the measurements from there. The structural engineer primarily provides a set of materials according to codes, which will allow this house to last a long time. In order to ensure that the structure is built to last for many years to come, another small but very important part of today's video is the detailed and comprehensive detailing of some specific aspects of the blueprints in this video today. For instance, if you happen to be building a staircase, which is essentially a stairwell, you will need to order this specific blueprint separately. A structural engineer can make this blueprint separately with great attention to detail and expertise. And in it, you will find a complete list of all the materials, the metal you need to order, what kind of welding seam should be used, which angles need to be bolted to the concrete, for example. Or, for example, if you want to order a kitchen, you need to order a blueprint of this kitchen too, with the dimensions of the drawers and doors. We call these working blueprints. They are not required for obtaining a permit, but they are definitely required for construction. Of course, you will have a question: how much does such work cost? Well, there is no single answer to how much an architectural or structural blueprint costs. I can give you some guidelines. You can find an architect who will make you a 2,500 square foot house blueprint for $5,000, or you can find one for $15,000. Here, everything depends on the policy the architect follows. An architect with a name or a beginner architect, meaning there is no single price. But be prepared that the average architect will charge you between $2,500 and $7,500 for the blueprints of a 2,500 square foot house. With structural blueprints, it's a similar story. You can expect to spend approximately around $5,000 on blueprints for your house and $2,500 on surveys. Of course, they look at the number of rooms, the height, and the complexity of the project. The renown of the designer or architect, the state, and everything else can vary, such as the materials used or the location. So, let's summarize. In my personal opinion, there are a few key and essential things you absolutely need to get fully acquainted with and thoroughly understand. First, what specific blueprints do I need to get a permit? Because not all counties require detailed, stamped architectural plans. Are there any other necessary documents? There are counties where you can even sketch the blueprints of your house by hand. Yes, They will very likely require structural blueprints from you in some cases. But the architecture can be done by a regular designer, and that will be sufficient for obtaining. Therefore, you will find out from the permit department what type of blueprints are needed. Usually it's a survey. Typically it's architecture, and generally it's structure. There might also be a blueprint for the septic system, but that's a separate story. We have a video about the septic system. Check it out. There's a lot of information on that topic.